Welcome to For Collectors.
Good evening, collectors. Welcome back to For Collectors. My name is Sammy Thunder, and tonight I am pleased to be joined by a fellow collector, founder of Cardhoundvintage.com, Matt Felumlee. Thank you so much for joining, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And so, if you guys are not familiar with Matt, he has his hands all over the hobby in various ways. He runs the Vintage Baseball Cards group, one of the largest groups for vintage on Facebook. And most recently, he has started and founded his own website, cardhoundvintage.com, which publishes articles, provides tips and resources, and has really blossomed over the course of time. And it's, again, a pleasure to have you on so we can kind of discuss that a little bit, talk about some of the projects you're going to be venturing into, and kind of discuss, a little bit more about the hobby, specifically, I guess, with vintage and, overall just general discussion.
Yeah, let's go.
So I guess the first thing we'll talk about, I'm going to bring up the website here, so people can be aware and know about cardhoundvintage.com. But if you want to kind of talk a little bit about what is cardhoundvintage.com for you.
Sure. So I've been moderating and adminning Facebook groups of various sorts for the last 5 or 6 years. It is the most thankless job I've ever had. I don't know if you run any groups, but probably the equivalent. And so the website started around the idea of just helping answer all of those sort of new to selling online or new to vintage or coming back to vintage after a long break or whatever. All those questions that people have about how to list cards, how to sell cards, how to ship, how to pack, all the lingo of the hobby and stuff like that. So it started as a bunch of blog posts on like a Wix or a Weebly site. And about 1.5 years ago, I just hired a friend to make it kind of a legit, kind of a more full-featured, high-powered website with some real hosting, and started writing articles that were not just like new collector oriented, some deeper dives into stuff that I was interested in, some feature stories and things like that. So it's just me pretty much doing the writing. I'm a writing teacher by day. I have a PhD in writing. I get sick of writing sometimes. I've been writing like crazy this week. I've been writing for my own site and for some stuff that gets pushed out to Yahoo. But I mean, generally, I love it. So, and the website's been a lot of fun. Adminning the Facebook groups is not, I mean, it is thankless, but most of the hobby friends, like the good hobby friends I have right now, and there are many, are also people I met, through that work. So I really don't mind like helping try to run like a tight ship and to keep people sort of safe when they're transacting and things like that. Facebook is not ideal for all of that. They're not much help, in terms of like spam and cloned accounts and all that kind of stuff. But it's fun. I won't do it forever, but it's I've stepped away from it a time or two. Sometimes you kind of need a break. But yeah, we have like a 60,000 member group with 3 moderators. So that's we could use like 30 probably. But the website kind of grew from that, and I post a couple articles a week. There's a classified section, which is probably not going to take off, honestly, with Facebook and things like that. There is a forum that has some good, like we've had some really fun guest forum events. We've had Andy Broom from CGC was in a couple weeks ago for some really good chat. We had Greg Kreindler, the famous baseball painter, in for some really fun chat. Al from Love of the Game was in a while ago. So we have some really fun guests. And there's also some content there that is meant to be educational. I haven't really like tried to recruit people into it yet necessarily, but there's like a little grading workshop and a identifying counterfeits workshop and stuff like that. So a free membership gets you into the forum, read, write access to all that stuff as well.
That's amazing. So let me bring up the website here so people can know what it looks like. So this is your website. and the homepage brings you right to like news articles. And you could see the menu bar above where you can sign up, and Vintage 101 articles, classifieds you mentioned, Collectors Club board. So yeah, as far as, I mean, as you mentioned, I guess when people get to this website, the first thing that they're pulled into are the articles, it seems. So would you say that a lot of the drive of your website are based on the articles?
90%. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure what it was going to be going in, but it's fine for me that it landed on like the content, because that's what's sort of, that's my wheelhouse. That's what I'm best
Mhm.
at. Maybe that's why it kind of led that way. But I do like to write. I like to research. I like to dive into um, data and numbers and stuff like that. Even though like I'm not a mega collector. I'm not a dealer. I don't grade thousands of cards or anything like that. But it's all just really really interesting to me. And it's like I don't have Google ads running on the page. I keep the advertising minimal. It's all just kind of small hobby brands, personal friends, people who are active in the groups with me. So like Ash from Legacy Cards, or
Mhm.
Eric, Boca Card Subs, Burls Breaks, T206 Cards, the Mantle app. Hopefully CGC will be on pretty soon for as an advertising partner, so that'll be fun. A couple of small auction houses, Rabbit Hole Auctions, the Cuban
Mhm.
Card auction site. So I just keep it really, it's like other sort of small. Actually, most of them are. I'm smaller than any of these, but small hobby brands that kind of support me, and I try to return the favor.
That's amazing. So, as how long have you? I mean, have you always been in the hobby? Was there a break at some time, or has it been a prolonged experience?
I started collecting. I set up at my first show in 1982, and I was 9 years old. My parents dropped me off at a Holiday Inn. We had a table. Like my brother, I was 9, my brother was 8, and we had a table at the frickin' show. Um, so lots of 80s stuff, and lots of, like I moved to Chicago um, when I was starting high school in the mid 80s. So lots of Jordan, but mostly baseball. And I'll say, like, during the college years, like I didn't collect as much. I bought cards every year. I went to a show or two every year, but I haven't been like hardcore collecting, all those years for sure. Like
Mhm.
having kids, or the early years of being married, or like being a broke college student, stuff like that. And for a long time too, I don't know how long you've been. I mean, I'm way older than you, but for a long time, like vintage was flat. And so there was no real, like if you didn't buy a Hank Aaron rookie today, it would be there tomorrow at the same price, So for a long time, we took for granted like a really sort of flat hobby, which obviously COVID threw us all a curveball there. And I think that was the impetus that got a lot of people back into it, like real heavy. And then most of those people though have stuck. So like in the vintage group, we have 60,000 members almost, whatever, but we have like 35,000 active members each month. So a lot of groups have like a lot of people, but they're kind of empty. But our groups are full, and still like record breaking activity each month, each year, which is pretty cool to see this far past what some people were calling was like a fad or an inflated market during COVID or whatever.
Do you feel like it seems like I've read a number of your articles on the website, and a lot of it is based on hobby trends and just how things have kind of evolved over the years, especially I would say during the COVID years and going forward. I got back into it just like a lot of others did during the COVID years. For me, it was around 2021, and it kind of took off from there. Um, but like as far like even going further back before things kind of blew up, I mean, what are some of the trends that you've noticed over that course of time?
It's funny. I was just big into like just pre junk for a long time. Like that was my heyday, like 82, 83, 85, So I was chasing like high grades of like Ryan Sandberg and Tony Gwynn and Cal Ripken. Those were the guys I was like checking the stats for every week in the paper and watching This Week in Baseball. I moved around a lot as a kid, so I grew up going to horrible Cleveland Indians games as a young person. Um, Cincinnati Reds with Eric Davis, who was like absolutely electric at the time. Minnesota, and then we moved to Chicagoland. So lots of Cubs. But again, like I've always had some vintage, but it was just there was really no impetus to like. Yeah, when I'm in my 20s, I'm like I don't really have a whole lot of extra money. A Hank Aaron rookie was maybe $200 at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which felt like a lot of money at the time. So I always admired that stuff, but I didn't follow it really closely because I just wasn't really in the demographic for it financially. I think since COVID, people, the iconic cards are still the iconic cards, and I guess they probably always will be. I personally, I've gotten away from a lot of that stuff. I've actually sold almost all of my mainstream sort of iconic tops, Bowman, standard vintage, and my collection is almost entirely South American, like Cuban cards of Negro League players at this point, which is kind of niche, but it's more fun for me. Like the other stuff, I really appreciate it. But again, it is always there, So if I want to buy back the Clemente rookie I sold last year to buy a Clint Thomas card who nobody knows who he is, the Clemente will still be there, But people think the market's down every here and there, like seasonally. But really, if you look at the numbers, it's been pretty. There was obviously a big COVID bubble, and then that kind of broke a little bit. But it's been level to maybe a little bit better than level since then, wouldn't you say, for the last few years?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm the kind of collector that likes finding a lot of those rare and unique pieces that you just don't see that often. And I kind of share, I agree. I share a lot of the same mindsets about like selling off I did sell a Clemente rookie that I had to kind of put it towards something that I knew I would not have another opportunity to buy again.
Yeah.
And so, but you're right. I mean, a lot of those cards, you go to the National, you go to these big shows, you see the cards at almost every table and
Right.
a lot of the vintage tables. But yeah, as far as trends go, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing really kind of become more and more popular are those unique like, regional pieces that don't come up often, like the Stahlmeyers. And I might be biased because I love that stuff, but yeah, there's a lot of it seems like there's a lot of popularity around pre-war, especially. But those rare and regional pieces during the 50s and 60s that you just don't see every day.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff, like I'm not into, but I get it. Like going forward, I mean, you have like a lot of stuff is rare, but then somebody has to care about it for it to be valuable, And so a lot of the like, the hot dog cards or the like the Kellogg's or the weird like supers like that they only made for 1 year or whatever. A lot of that stuff is like it's rare. It's not really out there. A 52 mantle is not especially rare, right? I mean, it's the Grail and all that. I get it. I wouldn't turn one down if it landed in my. Actually, I would sell it to be honest with you, and I would put that money towards some other stuff. But like, I love the iconic stuff. I love looking at it. I love looking at like a 53 Satchel Paige or a 52 Mays or whatever. But just at this phase of life, anyway, I don't see myself. I'm an English teacher, man. I got a budget, so I'm probably not going to plunk down for a lot of that. Like, I appreciate it, but it's not probably where I got a 15-year-old. I got to buy a car and college and braces before I'm going to be going in that deep on stuff. But everybody's different. Everybody has their own,
Yeah. Would you say that as far as being a collector for you now, like, because it sounds like, I mean, I think everybody kind of shares this, that, there's an evolution in collecting. So everybody kind of pivots their collecting preferences and what they enjoy. For you, at this present time, when it comes to finding the cards that you want for your collection, are you going directly to a lot of the times to auctions? Are you going into within your own group and seeing there? Are you doing like a hodgepodge of it all, shows and so forth?
Honestly, I think most of the stuff that I would want to find at this point and that I could probably afford, it just kind of has to find me from being out there. Like I was at the National and I met this guy, Angel Colon from Puerto Rico, and he's showing me this book that he's writing on the Toleteros Puerto Rican cards. and he's all into it and I'm all into it. And next thing you know, I'm like editing his book for him, which is super cool, super fun. It was kind of self-published and it came out maybe a week or so ago. He sent me a couple copies. That's like the set that has the Josh Gibson card, like the first Toletero set. So really rare cards, really beautiful, like graphic book. But anyway, he just emails me, and I'm not charging him anything for this. I'm just doing it because it's cool, you know, just because it's fun. And he's like, "Oh, are there any cards from this set that you're like looking for?" And I'm like, "Man, I would love to find the Luke Easter cards from that set." He played like in the 50s for Cleveland, but he played Negro Leagues before that. He played Puerto Rican professional baseball, and he has 2 cards in that set that I've never even seen them. I've never been able to find them. And so like a week later, I get this beat to hell package in the mail with like 9 stamps on it from Puerto Rico. And he has these Luke Easter cards crammed into one old yellow top loader with no, you know, not even held together with anything, you know, and like this thank you letter. So like, that was just like, I live for that stuff. I mean, not just because it's free, but it was just super, super cool. Like, I think if you know, it's cool to put yourself out there in a fun way to help somebody out, and like life pays you a favor every once in a while.
For sure.
I do watch like REA or Love at the Game, Hakes, some of the auction houses that seem to have some really big consigners, you know, for the stuff that I'm looking for. But like if it's me versus Keith Olbermann for one of these cards, you know, I'm going to lose that one. So
Right.
The bigger the auction, honestly, like the less likely I am to probably be able to walk away with something. I did come away with a cool card in the last Love of the Game. Somehow I was really surprised. I was pretty much at my max, even though I think the card is worth more, that kind of a thing. But I have friends who travel to Cuba periodically and still try to like find stuff and bring it back, which is few and far between at this point. So I'm just kind of hanging out and like, you know, chasing leads when I can, but it really is like it's a needle in a haystack at this point.
Do you dabble in the Venezuelan cards as well a little bit?
Not much. I would like to get into them, but really, most of my stuff is like 1940s and earlier. I think my only Venny, because of my my Cincinnati background, is the pre-rookie, the Davey Concepcion card, which is a really cool card. I would always be looking to upgrade that if I could find a better one.
Right.
I also, with the Cuban cards, I love to like get them out of the albums. You know, I like really like soaking them, removing them, cleaning them up. And those Vennies are just frustrating because that glue ain't coming off. I don't know what kind of concrete they use on those things, but that's why you see all those Vennies with the destroyed backs, because that stuff's just not coming off. So, but they are super cool. The Venezuelan stuff I have would be like from the 1930s, which was like early, like professional Venezuelan, which has some Negro League players and stuff in it. The Doble Aguilas, they're called. Super cool, like in action card set from the 1930s. But yeah, it's hard for me to say I'm even like actively collecting. Like I write like crazy. I look for stuff. I chase leads, but like I'm not a power buyer or anything like that. Just when I happen to find something that I can't afford and it fits into my collection, I go hard for it. But I got to pick my spots too.
Understandable. Have you? I mean, I know you've been involved with the hobby for quite some time. Have you attended the Strongsville shows?
When I lived in Strongsville, so that was like a
there you go.
long time ago. Yeah. But I haven't made the trek. I haven't even gone. I've been lazy lately. Like I can drive to the National when it's in Chicago. So my big show is the National when it's in Chicago. I don't even go. I'm not going to Cleveland for the National. I'm not going to the old airport.
Gotcha.
I don't know why. It's just like not all that appealing. So usually when I go to shows, frankly, I'm mostly there just to see friends. You know, like I'm not going to find cards there necessarily. It's more like a social thing. I'd love to go every year, but I have 2 young kids and Chicago's convenient. So I've been going like every other year lately.
I guess it's fortunate that they'll be there for the next 2 years. I think it's the next 2 years.
Is that true?
I think so. I know that they did it this year. I think obviously next year. I can't remember because I know they announced Detroit as a future.
Okay, yeah.
But I think they said that was 2020. 2008.
Okay.
So I think, but I'll have to double check that.
I mean, I'm biased, but it's a great venue. They needed to figure out how to get people in this year, especially on day one. It was like a mile-long line going down the road, but I hadn't experienced that before. But we usually go to like a Dogs game. We rent out one of the suites and just kind of make an event of it. So I really like going up there for that show. It's fun.
Kind of going back a little bit. So as evolving as a collector, what got you into collecting a lot of this, like the South American Cuban cards?
I was working on a run of Minnie Minoso, Chicago guy, Mr. White Sox, and just somewhere in there, I like discovered or remembered or whatever that he had pre-MLB cards. So he had, going back to like 1945 when he was much younger. Obviously, it was like 5 years prior to him playing in the MLB. And it was funny. I went to the National, I don't know, 6 years ago now, whenever it was in Chicago, like 3 times ago. And I was going to buy this Minnie Minoso card if I could find it. And I knew I probably couldn't find it. Or I was going to buy a Brooks Robinson rookie. Again, every table, right? You can buy that at any table. And the first table I saw when I walked into this place was Ryan Christoph, who is like the Cuban card king of the world and one of my best friends now, many years later. And like that card was the first thing I saw in his in his booth. So I'm like, I'm obviously buying this. 5 minutes into the show, all my money's gone.
Yeah.
Can't even afford a hot dog at that point. But and then that just opened up a whole new, oh, who else is in this set? Oh, it's an album. Where can I find an album? Oh, you really can't find an album. Oh, this guy has an album. I'm going to buy it. And then learning how to soak the cards out and grade them and do all that kind of good stuff. So then it turned into like a real just sort of passion project from there, I guess.
I have to ask this because you were mentioning the Cuban cards. Are you familiar with the dealer or collector named Phil Gary?
I'm not.
So Phil is like an aficionado of Cuban cards.
Okay.
And I had him on a For Collectors, I think it was a live stream. It was because I've purchased, he's outside of the Cuban cards, he's a big maze guy like me. And
okay.
But I got to know him a little bit, and he's, when it comes to Cuban cards, he's like my go-to person because I was asking about, the New York Cubans because they played in the Dyckman Oval, which is here in New York City.
Cool.
And so I was asking him about some players from the team. There's Luis Tion Sr. was on the team at that point, and I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the other names, but there was a couple other players, like there were a couple Dominican players on the team at that time I was trying to get information about, and he was able to kind of lead me to a single card of this one player who I guess he had a nickname, and so apparently he's only featured in like 1 or 2 sets, but he's a guy. Anyway, Phil is a guy who sets up at Strongsville. He sets up at the National.
Okay.
But it'd be great to kind of, if you're going to the National next year, I'd love to kind of introduce you to him because I assume he'll probably be there again setting up.
Yeah, please do. There's Ryan hasn't set up. He didn't set up this last year anyway. Michael Pike was set up this year. He's
oh yeah.
I met him. I guess I've met him the last couple years at the little Chicago Dogs game that we go to afterwards. So what's the card you were chasing down? Now I got to know.
Oh, I'm trying to remember this. Now I'm forgetting the name of the player, but he his last name is Martinez, and he had and his and I can't remember the first name, but on his Wikipedia page he was a great defensive player, and the Wikipedia page of him shows him kind of fielding a ball, but he's like literally in air with his legs spread, like open, almost like fielding it. I'm thinking like that would be an incredible card.
Right.
Let me see if I can look it up real fast.
Put the Pee Wee Reese to shame, huh?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So the player's name is Horatio Rabbit Martinez.
Okay, cool.
He played shortstop for the Cubans in the 30s and 40s. And after his playing career, this is based on the AI overview I'm just getting. He became an influential scout for the New York Giants, and he helped bring the first wave of Dominican major leaguers to the U.S.
Cool.
So had a not a gigantic name in terms of for cards, because I think I tried typing in Horatio Martinez, searching, and I couldn't find anything.
Right.
And then I asked my buddy Phil, and he says, "Oh yeah, his nickname is Rabbit." So I looked it up, and he has a card from, I can't remember which set it was, but yeah, it's one of those things where I was able to track down a seller who has the entire set but wants to sell the set. So it's not
Right.
something I'm really trying to do.
Right. Exactly.
But I'm slowly getting more into a lot of the Cuban players. I have a few. I think I have just one Cuban card. It's the Propagandas Montiel of Mathewson.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm definitely learning more and more as I go along. But those guys I always go to, Phil and my buddy Orlando from A Collector's Dream, who's here on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
well, be careful. It's an addiction. Like if you get much farther in, next thing you know, everything on the wall behind you is gone, and it's all.
That's the potential scary thing. And people say the same thing about like the T206 or the Venezuelan cards. But yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, I'm also like it's just kind of the house rule. I kind of have to sell to buy at this point, So if something's coming in, something's got to go out, and I really like everything that I have for the most part. So it's getting tough. It's getting tough to expand. Yeah, I'm not a big seller, but I mean, I'm not afraid of it. I took on a pretty nice consignment last year and was able to get a couple nice cards out of that. But the website brings in a little bit of advertising revenue. I'm allowed to throw that towards cards, But for the regular working man, it's tough out there.
It can be, especially when big cards or cards that you really, really enjoy come in. That's why I kind of like I've only purchased one card off of an auction house, but they're obviously intriguing because you go to so many shows like the National, and you see cards there obviously, but the auctions really bring in some of the most premier cards you just never really see.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, would you say that's true?
Yeah, and they bring in a lot of the big bidders as well, like
it's true.
So if you find the rare card plus big auction means, it just kind of bums me out lately, to be honest with you. Like I know I'm kind of fighting a losing war on half the stuff that I want to add. So I usually have a half dozen things I want in a good auction, but I really have to prioritize. Like if all my eggs have to go into one basket, which basket is it, And then I just go for it. And if I get it, I do. And if I don't, oh, well, I probably forgot about the 20% buyer's premium and the 10% sales tax and the shipping charge anyway.
It adds up. It adds up.
Yeah, it does.
Do you have a preference? I mean, some people really like buying cards in person. There's just a feeling of having the card in hand at that moment. You're able to see it. You're able to look at it and examine it. But then there's people who just dedicate entirely to auctions. I know a couple of people that just really gravitate to that. Does it not matter because at the end of the day, it's really just when the card presents itself, or like how do you kind of evaluate that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I don't understand at all, and not to offend anybody, but like I've sold cards, especially on consignment, to some of these PSA registry set guys, and they didn't even care to see the card at all. Like they don't even need a picture of it. It's just they need a PSA 5 in this card. I remember in my consignment last year, I was selling a really overgraded off-center PSA 5 Banks rookie. And this guy, he didn't care to see it. I didn't even have it in hand yet because I was still waiting on shipment. And he's like, I don't care what it is. I'll just pay you the average of VCP for it. I'm like, well, sold then, because I would have sold it to him for like a 4 price because it was not a pretty card. Mm-hmm. So I don't get that mentality of just like the number is the number. Like it's like almost the opposite of like buy the card, not the grade. It's like buy the grade, not the card. That's a logic I can't get into at all. But I don't get chances to buy that many cards in person. So at this point, I think I'm just accustomed to, but I'm also usually at this point buying from people I know.
Yeah.
So I trust their pictures. I trust their representation of the card. I trust that they're going to refund me if there is an issue with it or something, you know. So
Yeah, and actually, you bring up a good and interesting point, which is a very, as far as like the YouTube world of vintage collectors, they really, a lot of, at least a lot of people that I've talked with, really hype up the buy the card, not the grade mentality. You can find a great looking three that has just incredible centering, and you can find a four that's off center. And I guess ultimately, it comes down to preference. Does it really, like, what is your preference? Do you not care about off center cards? So I mean, it can go really down the rabbit hole there. But yeah, a lot of people seem to share that sentiment of, buy the card, not the grade. And a lot of people always feel, just a sense of gratitude with that.
yeah, for sure.
But so talking about grading, I know with your website, you have kind of tapped in a lot on the analytics of monthly grading through all the various grading companies like PSA, SGC, now CGC and Beckett. And for obvious, I don't look at it all the time, but you see trends where it's like, obviously PSA is like up here, SGC is what has been consistent, and but like what I wanted to know, like, to kind of get into that a little bit, because obviously there's percentages of what's being graded with each company. But I guess lately, with SGC, the numbers have gone down a little bit. So wanted to kind of get your perspective on it, how, like, what you think, how you feel about all SGC and their situation right now.
Yeah, I mean, people get worked up about it. It's understandable. Like, at the end of the day, it's cardboard. Like we are grown men and women, mostly men with expendable income, buying little pictures of baseball players or whatever. So I try not to. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but I have a lot invested in SGC. Like as a company, all my PC is in SGC. It would be nice, whatever's going on. Like, it would be nice just to have a little transparency, like a word from the top, whoever that is right now. I don't even know, like, if it's Ryan at PSA, like, is he the president of SGC now? Have they announced that? I'm not sure. But yeah, SGC's market share last month for vintage was slashed in half, probably voluntarily or like in a forced kind of a way. It seems like, I mean, what I'm hearing and seeing is that a lot of their employees are being cross-trained to PSA right now. And so it's not necessarily that they didn't get many cards in. I think they probably have a backlog stacking up, if I had to guess. So I think it's more that they were not able to get cards out, because if your graders are all being trained over to PSA, then there's just not enough hands on deck to keep pushing cards through. But like, whatever it is, I mean, if they want to, if SGC is going to shrink down to be, like, I wish on day one they would have come out and said, hey, SGC is now a 1980 and earlier vintage specialist grader. Like, hey, they never really made it with Pokemon. They've run some big specials, but they're not really catching on for modern. Go back to the roots. I would be totally cool with, I'd be excited by that, to be honest with you, because then when I send cards in, I'm not waiting in line behind Pikachu, to get my cards back. But so, like, maybe it'll rebound next month. I mean, it seems like Peter leaving was probably orchestrated on the day that collectors bought them. That's super common, right? To like stick around for 6 months, get a nice little golden parachute on the way out, probably a non-compete for a year or two, and then maybe he'll come back into the mix someday somewhere else. But it's just tough to not know at all, like, what's going on. Peter also used to get online every couple of weeks with his face front and center and just telling you. Sometimes it sounded a little PR, but at least he was trying to give you, like, the story, like, hey, we're backed up right now. Sorry, we're raising prices. Here's why. Traffic's up, traffic's down, whatever. You felt like you had a sense of, like, what was going on. So it is just kind of weird to be like, I have a dozen really nice cards that I do want in a slab someday, just for protection's sake, if nothing else. And I'm holding off at the moment because I don't know. I've had people friends sending cards in and they just sit there for a couple weeks before they're even checked in. Like, I just don't want my stuff sitting around. Like, is it at the post office box? Is it at the grader? Like, what's going on? So I'm waiting until the dust settles a little bit. So I figure a lot of other people probably are as well. They basically cut off their bulk submitters, their group submitters, like Eric Drew from Boca Card Subs. He's now subbing mostly to PSA at the same facility because PSA is now in SGC's building, you know? So I just don't know if they're trying to like orchestrate some kind of a slow death and hopefully the people will like, do they want us all pissed off at SGC? So now we want to grade with PSA, you know, like break down some of these allegiances or whatever. I could be way overthinking all of it. Hard to tell. But when your volume gets slashed in half in a month with no announcement, no press release, no nothing, it's a little bit concerning. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, as you mentioned, the key thing is like the lack of transparency, you know, really just kind of everything seems to be in limbo. And
Right.
Also big key thing is that they're no longer appearing at any major card show.
Right.
I think threw a lot of people off. They were not pleased about that.
Yeah. It's strange. I mean, it's definitely like, and again, you know, life will go on regardless, but
Sure.
it's just kind of annoying, to be honest with you. It's just kind of frustrating. To have had friends there who maybe, you know, like not hearing back from anybody anymore. People aren't allowed to talk. It's a strange vibe.
And also, I wanted to get your thoughts on what I think it was Ryan that mentioned this in an interview that he did on a YouTube channel. He mentioned SGC kind of evolving into a boutique brand, kind of like, you know, everybody was thinking like, what does that mean? Does it mean what you meant, as you mentioned, the 1980 and earlier? Like, what does that exactly mean? And obviously there hasn't really been any sort of dialogue on that since. So, you know, everything's just all speculation. But like, what do you take from that?
Well, like that would have been the perfect time to say, so like, but he also said boutique grader. But then I think the follow-up was like vintage or like what's the vibe, what's the deal? And I think he said like, well, just the customer will decide, you know. So what does it mean to be like a boutique? Anything has a focus, right? Like a boutique clothing store has a specific style of clothes. Like that's what makes them the boutique, is the fact that they have a really narrow focus. And so you can't really be a boutique vintage Pokemon modern card grader. That you're just small at that point. And if you're just small, I don't think you can really, without a specialty, you can't really survive, you know?
Yeah.
So, but again, is that the intention? I mean, they're not stupid people running the show. And so I don't feel really optimistic. I'll put it that way. If they would have come out on day one and said like, a boutique vintage grader is kind of what they were pre-COVID, right? People only sent them modern cards at that time because they could get them back in some time shorter than like a 2-year span, you know, or whatever it was. So they had always been a vintage specialist with really good knowledge and research on hand. And they were the only ones to know or to grade or to even be able to identify certain cards that came through. So that was super cool, you know, back in the day. So obviously, I mean, either there's a plan we don't know about yet, that's fine, or they're just going to let the market do what the market does. But I think without any advertising, without any focus on their part, like an intentional sort of reaching out to vintage or to whatever they would be doing, I think it's just gonna taper off.
My thought is that, like, assuming that they do taper off, let's assume that, you know, it's going to evolve to where SGC is no longer in the picture. I think, you know, I haven't really heard too much of a discussion on this, but it's in the back of my mind. What happens to SGC graded cards in general? I mean, is it doomsday where all the cards are just going to drop, are going to just completely drop because of, you know, because of all this news, and, you know, or is it just going to be everything status quo? You know, things are going to evolve because my thinking is that SGC has made such a huge footprint, especially during the with the COVID bubble and just kind of blowing up, and they've established such a stronghold. So I can't really see them, like, if they dissolve, if they disappear. I just can't see value on cards plummeting. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think good vintage is always good vintage. And I think 5 or 10 or 20 years from now, if SGC folded tomorrow, they never had a reputation for not being solid, right? And that's not true of some of the other graders that have folded, where you'd have to look at like, well, is this early or is this later? Like, what slab is this in? Were they slabbing altered cards at that time? You know, like SGC doesn't have any of that. So, and again, by the card.
Exactly. Yeah, at the end of the day.
I mean, they have a reputation, at least now. People fight back and forth, but they're SGC and PSA are both really hard on vintage, have been for several years. Who's harder? Is that even who knows? So it's always going to be legacy wise. Like, it's a good card. It's an authentic card. It's probably an unaltered card in that 5 or 6 or 7 slab, and so I think that will always have value. Maybe not like on par with PSA, where they actually do compete pretty well with, especially like in mid collector grade, like mid-grade iconic cards for the most part. People like to say PSA has the resale value, like for high-end mantles and maze and stuff. There is a weird like trend of PSA outselling SGC card to card for certain names or like certain cards. It's kind of wild. Like a 68 Ryan is one card just randomly, like the higher grades in PSA. Probably registry has a lot to do with that, right? You got people competing to fill that spot in their set, and that's cool. But I don't think it's going to like decimate. I don't think, maybe modern cards, I don't know, but I don't think my cards are suddenly worthless. I think, well, obviously they're not worthless, but SGC probably has, at least recently, PSA outgrades them 10-1, but in early vintage, it's even. Like, it's 50-50, and it has been for a little while. And if you could isolate out pre-war, which you can't do on gem rate, I've actually asked them to do that before, to have like instead of just 1950s and earlier, to back it up a little bit and have like a pre-war market share. That would be fun to be able to track.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess SGC has like a pre-war market share lead. So you're not going to tell me that like 50% of the pre-war cards that are graded are suddenly like having some big ding in value. There's still going to be demand for 50% of the cards of cool cards. There's still going to be demand in any slab. So,
and the last part of the topic I wanted to harp on is CGC's rise. And they do a lot of the trading, a lot of the trading cards, the non-sports. But it seems as though there's been some discussion about some SGC loyalists who would be like, I can never go with PSA, but CGC is starting to kind of become a factor in their minds.
Yeah.
So what do you take from that?
It'd be interesting to see like how many will people really put their money where their mouth is if it comes to that.
Right.
Obviously, if the plan is to really shrink SGC but keep them, obviously PSA is also planning on picking up a lot of that market share, right? I mean, there'd be no point in giving it away, to somebody else. So obviously their plan is on keeping it, and they have like business degrees and all that. So maybe they have it all, figured out. I'm just an English teacher. But I do think like, Andy, their lead grader over there, obviously he like pioneered Beckett's system. Beckett was the name for a long time. He's obviously runs a really good operation over there. He knows as much about vintage as grading as probably anyone else, just like in the hobby. It is a nice slab. It's it's a good product. I've been grading my vintage autos only there. I don't own any PSA cards. I mean, I don't hate PSA. I have a little OCD. And so like once I got, most of the cards I find are SGC graded. And so I'm just kind of going that way. But I don't have anything against anybody or any company or anything like that, but I think there's an opening for CGC. They've been running some sports specials lately. I'm interested to see in general. I mean, even PSA right now is predominantly a Pokemon grader. Like they grade more. That's frightening to me. Like I mean, my kids collect some Pokemon, so I kind of get it, but it's wild just how many TCG cards are being graded, just hundreds of thousands a month, maybe 1 million a month. Is that going to continue like forever? You know, I mean, is that where the market is now? Or do we eventually come back to, you know, like, is there a Pikachu rookie card? Does he get injured? Like, I don't know. How does this work in terms of, I've never totally grasped like TCG ups and downs with value, you know, but
Yeah.
I'm old. It's not for me. So that's fine. But obviously they have a reputation built across all kinds of collectibles. And if they can sort of leverage that into sports, and then sports would be a path into vintage, I mean, I could see them being like a 50-50 competitor with PSA someday. Probably not for like registry, high end, you know, mantle rookies and stuff like that, but just for your sort of everyday grader, I think plenty of people would work their way to CGC as their main grader of choice, like for their collector cards or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Well, definitely it definitely seems to be a lot of unknowns right now with the news, but um, it'd be interesting to see what happens over the course of the next year leading into the national, because obviously a lot of the news was dropped right at that point.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see how the trends go forward. But lastly, before we finish up, I know we wanted to address your new group that you are, their new project group that you're working on with
Oh, sure.
the Mantle app. What I'll do is let me bring that up here, and let me see. There we go. So this is their main website, but I know they have Mantle also has an app as well where you can sign up. But I wanted to give you some time to kind of talk a little bit about what you're planning with Mantle.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, their app, if you download the app and check it out, and when this posts somewhere, I can drop a link somewhere if you want. But
Yeah.
it's basically Facebook for collectibles. So it's social media. It's not really sales based at the moment in the same way that Facebook isn't really sales based, but people still sell on there. But it's social media for collectibles. Most of those collectibles are cards at the moment. And I started what I think is probably the only, or at least the first, vintage group on the app. We have a whopping like 150 members at this point. So that'll be the challenge, will be like scaling it and growing for them. But just personally, like I love the idea of less Facebook in my life. I'm tired of scrolling through so much toxic political AI ads and garbage just to get to my cards. You know, like my cards are my escape from all that toxic political garbage anyway. And so I'm kind of going all in on the platform, at least in the sense of like trying to help them bring in some vintage folks. And some of my Cardhound writing gets pushed out through their news platform now. And some of that gets pushed out to Yahoo Sports, which helps me grow my audience a little bit, which is cool. So it's hobby owned. And so I'm always a fan of like just supporting other hobby brands. I don't think Zuckerberg needs any of our business or advertising or money or anything, but it is where people are, right? Like, 50,000 people in a group is a lot of people. And so it is going to be hard to like change that paradigm in a meaningful way. But I think if a few hundred people were hanging out in a vintage room away from that, it would just, at some point it would start to organically kind of pick up some traffic. I think I hope so anyway.
Yeah, it sounds. Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, it's hobby owned, and it sounds like a great futuristic option for collectors to kind of gravitate to.
Yeah, if anybody lands on the app, you just download the app, and then under groups, just search for vintage baseball cards, which is the same name as the Facebook group that I help run as well. So, and you'll find 156 of your new closest friends on there at the moment. We'll see. It had 0 members 3 weeks ago. So hey, man, we're
yeah, it's growing.
Got to start somewhere.
And we'll leave a link in the description as well.
Sure.
And obviously for Cardhound Vintage as well, so that people know where to go.
Appreciate it.
Of course. So I guess, yeah, sorry, I'm getting a bunch of text messages now. I got to turn the focus.
What's blowing up, man? Anything good?
It's mostly, yeah, it's collectors, other content creators just chiming in some messages. I guess just to finish off, is there anything additional you wanted to mention that we didn't really discuss?
I think we ticked everything I had on my list. Yeah. Make sure you send me the link, and I'll push this out as well. Yeah,
for sure. All right. So before when we go offline, just stick around because I have to process the video at the very end. But appreciate you joining, Matt. This was a great conversation. It's great to kind of tap into some of the projects you're working on, as well as your perspective, because I think a lot of people respect what you provide for the hobby, and they definitely wanted to hear what you had to say.
Thanks.
Of course.
Nice meeting you too. We have probably 100 Facebook messages, right? But we've never met until now, so I appreciate it.
Exactly. Cool, man. Well, thank you very much for joining. And again, if you want to check out Matt's website, it's cardhoundvintage.com. And definitely check out the Vintage Baseball Cards group on Mantle. Download the app. You can join. And let's keep on growing that platform. So take care, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Love the hobby. Keep collecting baseball cards.
But hey, we want to keep the lights on here at 4 Collectors Studios, so hit the like button for us, guys.
So thanks everybody for coming, and yeah, we'll see you next time on 4 Collectors.
All right, guys, have a great rest of your night. Subscribe to the 4 Collectors channel if you haven't done so yet, and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Clemente Collector has said we hit a grand slam, so that makes me feel good.